You're listening to The Talent Sync, a collaborative podcast production about anything and everything recruiting and hiring. Literally the kitchen sink on how all things in talent acquisition work together, should work together, and how sometimes they don't. Now it's time to sync up with your hosts, Leah Daniels and Kevin Grossman. Today's episode asks the question, how clear is it? Enjoy the podcast. Leah, it is so great to see you. How are you doing? We're in the heart of summer now. We're actually the middle of the year as of this recording, aren't we?
We are. We have hit the tip over point. I always think it's funny that the solstice happens in June, even though the mid part. You know what I'm saying? I feel like the solstice should line up directly. And anyway, we'll argue
We
calendars
need
at
to
a different point in
change.
time.
We need to put in the suggestion box in the
Yes.
ethereal suggestion box to change
Who's
that.
in, who's in charge of this
I
actually?
know. But speaking of that, speaking of tipping points, though, there's been folks that I've seen posting too that we're now halfway to 2050
Oh God.
and halfway past the year 2000, right? So whatever the 25 years now. I mean, that's like, God dang, man. And when you think of 1990, that's 35 years ago now.
Oh
See,
my God.
we're gonna do math today. This is one of the things we're
I,
gonna
I
do.
I'm dying here. I can't even think about these math things.
We're gonna do math things. But speaking of things that don't make sense and do make sense, right? We're in the heart of summer. I know folks are like on vacation time. We're again, as of this recording, we're getting ready for 4th of July. Do you have plans for the 4th, by the way?
Oh, I don't this year. We're having a nice chill. Um, Probably some fireworks. The normal 4th of July. This is kind of a fun one because we have it on a Friday, right? So
Yep.
4th of July
Yep.
is set
Weekend.
up
Yep.
perfectly for a nice long
Hmm.
weekend. But I think it'll be good. I think we'll have a nice time. I think we'll chill out. We'll be in the clear as we go into the beginning of
You
July.
already want to jump to that, don't you? We're gonna get to that, but yes, we're gonna have a barbecue with friends on Friday afternoon. There's no fireworks where we live because they're illegal.
Oh,
Because it's just super high fire danger in where we live, with the hills and everything, and but it's good. It'll be a good time. It'll be a relaxing barbecue time, and then my wife and I will do some hiking and do all that good stuff. And we'll be in the clear because I know you want to get there in the clear. So, b based on our conversation last time, right?
yep.
So, um, talking about ATSs and the difference between bots and automation and AI and screening knockout questions, which is not AI, which they are not AI, and they've been using those for over 2 decades. And then there was this thing with one of the mainstream ATSs in our space
Yep.
launched this partnership with Clear. So tell us about that.
So for those who aren't familiar, Clear is the uh, program that you can participate in
Yep.
when you're at the airport, for example, and you would like to go through really quickly. It will take a picture of your face, biometric, and helps you expedite the process. Now, that means you have a background check that's been done previously, you've been fingerprinted, all the important things have happened. And that's all associated also to PreCheck, which is another program that
Hmm.
the TSA offers. Well, Clear, it looks like, has started expanding some of the ways they are able to validate information. And we saw this originally with LinkedIn. I don't know if you saw it. This is more than a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, even. LinkedIn had a relationship with Clear that you could be Clear verified on LinkedIn's platform. And that way, if you were outreaching to somebody, it would say that you were validated or verified. It looks
No,
like that.
I missed
Oh,
that memo. I missed that
oh,
one about
yeah.
LinkedIn. No, but I mean, but was it important that I missed it or not, though, to be honest.
No, I just kind of noticed it one day. So I don't know, like it's a thing. And it's funny because I thought it was in my head. I was like,
Are
huh,
they still
huh.
offering it? Does LinkedIn still do that
As
with
far
the
as I'm
clear?
aware, it's yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I've seen it
So
recently, so
so
I would say
it's
yes.
an identification verifier and allows you to skip some of the lines when you're at the airport to go through more quickly, which I did use Clear years ago. Now I'm just all TSA pre-check for the most part. But similar thing though, too, right?
Yeah,
Um,
and it's according to our friends, Clear and LinkedIn on that one, you're going to get higher visibility. So they basically are giving you a carrot if you are being searched upon by recruiters. You'll get more comments and reactions to your posts. So they're giving you some artificial boost and 30% more messages. Now, as a person that's at a company, none of those things sound exciting to me. The last thing I want are more messages from LinkedIn
right,
and
exactly.
more
Right,
profile views. I actually want less. But
right.
anyway, that aside, I think it was targeted to candidates and people who are trying to get increased visibility if they're looking for work. I think that was sort of the idea behind when they launched this. I don't actually know the date actually. But it's been out there for a bit of time now. Um, what I think is interesting is that Greenhouse has decided to also move down this path.
Same
So they
thing,
made,
right? Or
right?
same
Yeah,
thing.
let's have this announcement. And what was interesting for me about it is, so I use Clear. You were saying you used to, you don't now, but I
Right.
do. Um, at some airports, I find it to be extraordinarily helpful, so I
Yep.
go through
Sure.
faster. It's worth the investment for me in terms of the time to have done it. If you have the right credit card, it's free, so it's really
Hmm.
about whether it's the right time. But what is notable to me is the limited number of people who have Clear. It is
Yes, and that
not
was my next question for you.
a widespread thing.
How many, what did you find in regards to the percentage of, I guess, that are of the population, is it of that are using Clear?
Yeah, so it's interesting. According to various things that you look at, it's about 0.78 people per 100,000. So what does that actually mean? In the US population, it means it's about 1%, I think is how the math works out. But of the working population, it might be a little closer to what, 2.5 or 3%.
Okay, so maybe it's a little bit higher for that, and that's where I was wanted to ask next, is that for the working population, it would be a little bit higher. But still, though, and
Yep.
and 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 what is that representative population? Those are the folks that are traveling all the time, right? Those are the salespeople, the executives that are using Clear on a regular basis, not even standard everyday salaried level professionals, and right, unless they are traveling a lot, which only that small percentage is. How helpful is that then ultimately?
Well, extraordinarily helpful if you happen to be part of that
Well,
3%.
if you're a part of the 3%, sure, that's fair. Yeah.
But I think that actually lends a different question and things that aren't clear in the announcement, like when the person comes through into Greenhouse, for example, are they being tagged as Clear
Clear,
verified?
yeah.
And that leads me to ask some questions about discrimination in terms of are you discriminating on certain people based on the fact that they have Clear, right? So Clear isn't something you just go get for the fun of it, right? There is some work you have to put into it. It has
Oh,
to
of
have some
course.
value on the other side. And I would assume, the assume word here, that most people who have it are people who travel a lot, right? Like you said,
Yeah.
executives, probably salespeople, maybe consultants. There's a
Hmm.
handful of people
Yeah.
that spend their days thinking about their airline miles and how many they have.
Right.
And
No,
a
that's
lot of
true.
people,
Yeah.
and a lot of people who don't, right? And I just have to wonder, like, if you're looking at a list of candidates, are you giving some unintentional bias towards people who have this because you assume things about them. You assume they're more professional. You assume that they've had a more interesting career. Who knows what you're going to assume. None of those of which are technically illegal, I would think, but they are another bias that we're allowing to creep in. And in this
Right.
case, it's a white collar bias. But keep taking that further, right? If you have a couple of daughters, one of which is going to go to college soon, and then she's going to
Hmm.
graduate, and then
Hmm.
she might work. Now, you could afford to pay for her clear, for example. Are you helping her uh, be more professional when she applies? Because she has clear. I mean, these are really interesting questions. I don't know if companies think about it, if they care, but it is a question around like it's a very small group of people who have access and who would use having clear. And is that actually all that useful and helpful from a recruiting standpoint? And on the other side, does this even matter? Like, Kevin, does it matter? If only 3% of the working population has this, does it
So
matter?
it, yeah, and I don't think to me it doesn't matter when I just think about the conundrum that employers are in right now with the sheer volume of applications, and we're gonna, there's already early reports that we're underwater with the jobs report this time. Again, we'll wait and see. It was supposed to come out Friday on the 4th of July, I
Yep,
believe. But I saw some numbers that it's like negative 33,000 as opposed to the 95,000 projected
yep,
for June, which may not be a surprise or a shock considering which direction it's been going. But I think ultimately, I don't know. I don't think it matters. Maybe it matters to organizations that are hiring for very specific sets of people, right? Like salespeople, like management level, that that would maybe help. But then there, you to your point, I mean, we're already kind of with the whole Workday Mobley lawsuit, we're already kind of opening up Pandora's box, opening to vendors about potential litigation, adding more bias or selection bias to systems, right? Other than just helping with what is the core functionalities of the ATS, and helping companies get to the qualified candidates faster. So again, maybe there's a value for that subset, right?
yep. Well, I think that if we sort of take this and go, all right, so what are companies going to do? Because clear is not the answer. It's going to take
Right, I
a
know.
generation to get people all
Right,
on to make that usable across the board. It's too small a number of people using it. So
sure.
what are companies going to do, right? We didn't talk about this ahead of time, but like in my head, I have seen, not in my head, in reality, I've seen an explosion of AI interviewing tools,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, I know. And
Explosion.
MetaView just got 36 million, 20, what was they just got a big investment, didn't they?
Oh, I missed
MetaView?
that one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
MetaView got I concluded it in my last news link for our newsletter. Hold on, it's 35 million.
Wow.
They got a 35 million, and I think that was here. I'll tell you really quick because I had it right here. Series B round, led by Google Ventures, 35 mil. And MetaView is an interview platform, as you know, that records and then makes that just like what Zoom's doing on our recording for this right now. And what's you get the AI component and being able to search the text, which is some valuable, helpful tools. Which again, that's another conversation too. But so anyway, continue your thread. I didn't mean to
So
sidetrack us.
yeah, so I mean, I think the last count I had, there's at least 50 of these tools that have appeared in the market in the
Sure.
last year or so. Um, I think there will be a rush to use them. I think back to bias, we got more questions, right? Like in talking to employers, have heard everything from I want clean screening to I wanted to give me a ranking on um how professional they are on the phone.
Yeah.
Can't even imagine how the AI will do that. Mastery of the English language, if it's especially if it's a person where English is not their first language. Their ability to listen and react to questions. So I have heard some really interesting requests that the folks want out of an AI screening tool. My question is, can they do it without bias? Again, and then this is the bigger question. So back to our friends at the ATS.
Yeah.
What are you going to do with that information? So these ATSs are getting harder and harder to connect with. For all the APIs that they have available, there's also all these more stringent security requirements that
Oh,
you have to
totally.
meet.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and we're, everything from what goes on in the EU and Canada and multiple markets from around the world that have in our own US, even with maybe the lessening of compliance requirements in the US, although there hasn't been a lot of that, has there? Not right, even not yet, at least.
No, I think
No.
this is why this Workday lawsuit's going to be so
Right.
interesting. Is what does that have to do? I
Well,
mean,
the whole I did, but then again, you did see that what was the thing that the Senate overwhelmingly voted out of the mega bill, which was the AI what's it called again? The um that would have restricted states from enacting their own AI regulations. What the heck was that
yeah.
called? What was that
Oh, I don't
called?
know.
But you know what I'm talking about though, right? It
Yep.
was the AI uh provision in the Big Beautiful. That was all it was called. They reject it was the 10-year ban.
Yeah.
The AI provision, which would have been the 10-year ban of allowing AI regulations to take place. So, which I think that breathed a sigh of relief across the board, especially across for vendors from state to state, considering that states like California already have, gosh, what,
Eh,
up to 10 different
Well,
AI
it's not even
regulations?
that. We've had AI regulations for nearly a decade, right?
We have. But this one, oh,
Illinois put it
that's
out a
what it was
long time
called.
ago.
AI moratorium. Sorry, I know I didn't have my notes up with me. It was an AI moratorium that was in the big mega bill. You're listening to the Talent Sync. Keep on sinking. With us, not really sync with us. Thank you. What do your candidates think of your recruiting process? The annual Candy Benchmark Research and Awards program helps you and your organization measure and understand your overall candidate experience ratings from pre-application to onboarding. Benchmark your candidate experience today. Go to surveil.com/candies, CANDES. That they
Yeah.
voted that 99 to 1, talk about bipartisan legislation in a way, they voted down, which I think ultimately, based on my read of it, is a good thing for technology for the industry. But going back to your point about then it is getting harder and harder for the ATSs and a lot of the other to remain compliant because they're capturing. There's a lot of information that
Yeah.
they're capturing, that all these systems are capturing, and now we're transcribing on the interview platforms that you're
Well,
referencing, or transcribing conversations.
yep. And it gets more complicated too, right? When you think about uh, a lot of the global legislation has less to do with you, employer, where you're located or where a job is
Hmm.
located, and more about where the person who is conducting that interview is a resident of. So not even where they're located. It's about where they're a resident of. So if you're a resident of the EU, legislation from the EU does technically follow you to the US
Yeah.
if you're applying for a US job. So now, again, I'm going to be a little bit more nerdy here, and we talk about these candidates are applying for these jobs through these AI interview tools.
Right.
And there's a lot of questions around. So in the data world, we care about being a data controller versus a data processor.
Hmm.
Data processors have no ownership to the data. They are there to process it and then
Hmm.
right,
Right.
and it's gone.
Right.
And they are not they can't resell it. They can't use the data for any other purpose other than the express purpose of the company that they're processing on behalf of, who is the data controller in this case. In AI, there's some real questions around ownership
Right.
of the output of the AI, right? Because there's multiple versions of the output. There's the output of what it comes out with from the transcriptions and from the scoring
Hmm.
and whatever the candidate has actually said that it processed. And then there's the learning that the AI is continually doing in this black box of magic that is the AI. And who owns that? And is
Right.
that a data controller or a data processor? So messy, messy, messy.
It is because it's the AI's interpretation of what was the core data, and then how it's being then served up again back to the end users of to inform them of takeaways, insights, things that they need to act on, which
Yep.
we do as humans. But you're right. Who owns that now? Um, and I I haven't. I guess I continue to study it more. I'm actually taking some online AI courses now to bone up, as they say, on what's because there's just it's really a lot coming fast, super duper fast right now. But it's also messy. So going back to the whole ATS conversation, right? What is it that, because you work, obviously, you are helping companies integrate their
Yep.
systems, right? That's what you
Yep.
do. What, what is it getting harder and messier, or is it getting better? It's harder and messier, right?
So I would say it's both, which
Okay.
is worse, right? So I think that the
So it's a multiverse.
ATSs,
It's a multiverse thing.
always a multiverse thing.
Yeah.
I think the ATSs have gotten better and better and better at providing the ability to have access,
Hmm.
right? So they used to have a lot of places in the ATS that are like super secret squirrel areas that nobody can get to, and you have to like, through hopes, dreams, and magic, could you ever get there? Or they have to build you an internal API and all this
Sure.
stuff. It's messy, right? I think they've gotten better and better about having the ability to have external APIs and giving their customers more and more control on being able to provide access to those and not in an all or nothing fashion. Like
Hmm.
they everything used to be a keys to the kingdom. You got everything or you got nothing. And now it's much better about being segmented to certain data tables or certain types of information that you would have access to. I think they've done a really good job on that. But on the other side of it, I think companies have had to gotten much better about the scrutiny around security and understanding what their vendors are doing with their data and how they're processing it. What the what are they going to do if there's a data breach? We want to know what your process will be. If there is a data breach, we want to know, they call it tabletopping. So like show us a tabletop exercise of something bad happening and what are you going to do about it? How will you manage it? There's a lot of security questions. How are you storing our data? Where is it encrypted? How is it encrypted? Is it all of these fancy pieces around
Yep.
security that these companies, because they, at the end of the day, are the only one who has to write that check if things go south,
That is
right?
correct. Yeah,
Yep,
that's true. And by the way, I've noticed in probably the past 2 years in particular, for companies, even if they benchmarked with us in years past and net new companies as well, were and getting more even for our process, which does not have any integrations, our benchmark process. Um, they don't have to integrate with Surveil. The enterprise level they do, but for at the benchmark level, they don't. And yet I'm still getting all those security questions more than I've ever seen before, actually.
yep,
Yeah, and just there's a new company that we're going to start working with soon too that just did the same thing. And even though I'm saying NA to most of the questions because they're not applicable, I still have to go through that. Period. Because and that's the reality too. It is a good point what you said about being in a good direction but yet messy at the same time too, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
I think the
Yeah.
technology itself is becoming easier to touch and integrate and move
Yeah.
data around with. But I think as a sort of response to that and to the broader problems in the market around
Right.
security, I think we're seeing more and more investment in the security process. So, it's not unusual to take 6 months to get through a security review now.
Oh, totally. I know this from just now being with Surveil, and I mean, that it's even just doing the talent experience platform. At least that much time for
Yep.
potentially for
And
security.
but I think that's also an important thing to recognize
It
that why
is.
are
Yeah.
companies doing this? It's because candidate data, if you take a second for like, and I think we didn't for a long time, the amount of information a candidate provides you in the
Absolutely.
hiring process
Yeah.
is staggering,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And sometimes I think as employers we ask for more than we should. I mean, I still see the birthday and social security number questions show up sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, we don't need to know those right now for hiring purposes,
Right.
but thank
Yeah.
you.
We've talked about
Um,
that before too, but
but
yeah, that's true.
but if I'm
Yeah.
capturing it, now I have it. I now have your home address. I have all your work history, everywhere you've
Everything.
ever worked, your address in which you worked in those locations
Everything.
sometimes,
Yeah.
everything. So we have really sizable amount of personal information, PII, that we are capturing as employers when we go through the hiring process. And we are vulnerable to attacks because if you get a hold of that data,
Yeah.
you can do some serious damage, especially if you can marry it to another set of data that you might have illegally obtained.
And maybe it happens and we just don't hear about it. But every haven't we heard about more data breaches of our recruiting technology systems? Because we hear it from financial institutions, right? And credit card companies and the like. Maybe because that's information that could be turned around and be monetized more readily potentially than candidate information. I'm and right and but social security numbers though can be part of that for employees too. Why don't we see more of that or heard more of that?
I think, we've had a few of these data breaches. I know CareerBuilder had one a few years
They
ago
did.
that
That's
was pretty
true. That's
significant.
true.
But
Uh,
I think,
Didn't UKG have one or no?
oh, I don't know. I can't
No,
remember.
maybe not.
But
No.
what I can say is that I think as a society, we have downplayed the level of that data. Like I
Yeah.
really do think because it's not healthcare data, it's not HIPAA data.
Yeah.
And generally, we're not giving out social security numbers and birthdays until the hiring process, the onboarding process.
Sure.
But there are still lots of ATSs that collect that data earlier and employers that collect it earlier. And I think we've downplayed it overall. And a lot of the last piece I'll say is a lot of the companies who collect social security number or date of birth early in the process are organizations that do a mass number of hourly hires. So
Sure. Right,
and
right.
not your $100 an hour hourly hires, your
Yeah,
seven,
we're
ten
talking about
dollar an
high
hour
volume hiring and hospitality and various restaurant
retail.
industry, retail. Right.
Yep.
Right, I get
And
it.
and
Yeah.
the driver behind the question of social security numbers actually were you a former employee and are you eligible for rehire, right?
Yeah.
That is really the question they're driving towards. And I think because of that, that particular audience is generally marginalized and we're not really worried about them like we probably should be.
Sure.
And so again, kind of ties us back to the beginning of this whole conversation, which is how much of this is a white collar bias that's all seeping into this process.
That's very true. So then on a final note, based on how we started, right? So again, maybe for that biased small percentage of white collar candidates who travel a lot, maybe there's a
Yeah.
value to that clear credential. But what what is one or two things then as we wrap this up of what should the ATSs really continue to to to
I mean,
spend more time on then?
I think if candidate validation is an issue that we really feel strongly we need to solve for, I'm shocked that we haven't moved to a simple two-factor authentication
Got it. That's what you told me
on
before we started.
either.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
how is it that I'm not sending you a text message to put in the six-digit code? This is the most common thing. I
It
mean,
is.
I can't buy a pair of shoes now without a
Correct.
two-factor authentication and a
Yeah.
code. So how is it? And I think a lot of that is actually rooted back into a lot of these companies don't really understand where candidate applications fall in the TCPA laws, in the text messaging laws. I
Yeah.
think there's still some questions around, is it transactional? Is it not transactional? There's some questions there. And I also think that the price point for texting is still shockingly high if you're going to buy a service to do
Sure.
text messaging, given that the price to actually text is not all that high.
Correct. That's
So
true, huh? Yeah.
I think there's still a thing in there too, where there is a lot of companies trying to figure this out, and the services available to them are still somewhat standalone, and they're not integrated into the ATS well into that process. I think that is actually a process that has some opportunity for improvement.
Love that, and that's something that we're not going to have any time for this time, though. But I mean, why haven't we seen more blockchain progress as well in our
Oh,
space, right?
that's a great question.
Because I remember it coming up years ago with some folks poking around it in regards to, having a verifiable credential for candidates, right? That would be blockchain driven. We'll have to talk about that next time. Because I know it's more prevalent now in financial institutions. That is a technology that's being used more combined with AI. But anyway, this stuff again is super above my pay grade, and I'm studying. I'm studying up though, Leah. I'm
Well, I
learning.
think I'm
I'm
going to leave
learning.
you with this parting thought.
Do it.
Blockchain is great as long as no one's lying.
Well, sure. Isn't that true about even just the resume too?
There we go.
Or
You
the
see the
link
problem.
or the LinkedIn profile or yeah, that's true. Fair enough.
And
Well, Leah, listen, it's always a pleasure talking with you and have a great 4th of July holiday and we'll see you on the other side.
sounds good. You too. Enjoy the weekend.
Everybody get talent synced. Thanks for listening and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you for listening to the Talent Sync podcast, a Surveil Candy and Job Sync collaboration. More episodes soon. Subscribe to our podcast via your favorite podcast player today.